Welcome to Anazini's Story Channel. Before we begin, please hit like and subscribe. I've transmigrated straight into the body of Empress Lu Chao. At the exact moment she's being framed for adultery by the wicked concubine, Han Yan. Lu Chao, you wretched woman, still playing dead? The tyrant's voice cut through the air like ice, followed by a basin of freezing water splashed across my face, jolting me awake. Lu Chao? Isn't she the cannon fodder Empress from the novel I just finished reading? Wait, I actually transmigrated into her? I lift my head and meet the tyrant Hang's glacial stare. His handsome face is twisted with murderous intent, a gleaming sword pointed straight at me. For a moment, I'm stunned. Honestly, with a face like that, not being a movie star is a total waste. And there's Han Yan, clinging to him like a delicate little bird, soft and boneless. Her enchanting beauty seems even more radiant with excitement, exactly the kind that turns heads in an instant and topples empires. The tyrant and the enchantress. A stunning pair, absolute visual perfection. Except, this is hardly the time to admire handsome men or ship couples. Judging by my current situation, I'm about to die. After a brief moment of confusion, I quickly piece everything together. I remember this part of the plot all too clearly. Earlier that day, the imperial physician had taken her pulse as usual and announced that Lu Chao was already 2 months pregnant. Overjoyed, she had sworn everyone present to secrecy, planning to surprise the emperor herself. After dinner, she felt slightly dizzy, thinking it was just a normal pregnancy symptom. She paid it no mind, completely missing the cold smirk on her maid Ruyi's lips. After all, the original Lu Chao was nothing more than cannon fodder. The people around her were merely low-level support, existing only to ensure her tragic end unfolded smoothly. With Ruyi's help, she retired to rest and soon fell asleep, until the commotion woke her. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in complete disarray. Her clothes loosened, her chest even exposed, and there stood the tyrant Heng and the enchantress Han Yan, their expressions vicious yet gleeful, as if enjoying a grand performance. Seize the adulterer. At the shout, 2 guards dragged a half-naked man from behind a screen and threw him to the ground. He kowtowed frantically, his voice shaking. Your Majesty, spare me, I'm innocent. The Empress forced herself on me. It was unbearable humiliation. Lu Chao was so overwhelmed with anger that her blood surged to her head, and she fainted before she could utter a single word in her defense. Awakened by the cold water, she was then subjected to further torment by the enchantress. The original Lu Chao had been a woman of quiet dignity, but her explanations were doomed to be futile. Her only regret was this: the tyrant hadn't believed her at all. This whole setup was full of holes. Anyone with half a brain could tell it was a scheme. Yet he chose to believe it, didn't even bother investigating, and simply ran her through with his sword. A true tyrant, blind and ruthless, a textbook fool. I had just read that part before transmigrating. So furious my liver ached, cursing him and that enchantress to the heavens. Before I could even finish, I was yanked straight into the story. And the moment I arrived, I was thrown right into the opening scene of hell. Dead on arrival. Yes, literally dead. Immediately, I tried to summon a system in my mind, demanding answers about what kind of twisted game this was. But there was no helpful guide system, like in other stories. Only a faint, ethereal voice echoed. The Empress cannot die. If the Empress dies, the host will be deleted. Deleted. That sent a chill straight down my spine. The blade was already at my throat. And now you're telling me I can't die? It's not like I want to die. But how am I supposed to turn this around? And just like that, the damn voice vanished, gone as if it had never existed, leaving me drenched, kneeling in the hall without a shred of dignity, utterly cornered. Ha ha ha, sister, I truly didn't expect this. You act so prim and proper all day, yet behind the scenes you're this depraved? Han Yan's voice rang out, sickly sweet and sharp. To think you'd lower yourself to touch such a filthy man? Or are you really that desperate? If you're going to sneak around, at least choose someone decent. That ugly old face isn't just an insult to you. It's an insult to His Majesty's peerless beauty. Her shrill laughter echoed through the hall. The tyrant she'd just flattered even lifted his chin slightly, as if to show off his sharp, chiseled jawline. I didn't even bother looking at him. Handsome or not, he was still an idiot. It seemed the next part was the public humiliation segment. My time to catch my breath was probably running out. Following her gaze, I looked at the so-called adulterer, still kneeling, Half naked, filthy, truly both old and ugly. Han Yan knew exactly what she was doing. The original Lu Chao valued her purity and reputation above all else. Living by the principle, better shattered jade than intact tile. This move wasn't just meant to kill. It was meant to break her completely. But I wasn't about to let her have her way. Just then, the tyrant roared in fury. You shameless woman, am I not enough for you? And yet you dare commit such a vile act? How could I possibly spare you? Everyone in your palace will be buried with you. The little maid Ruyi, kneeling nearby, trembled like a leaf. Finally, she couldn't hold back any longer. Fortunately, we discovered it in time. Her Majesty has not been violated. I beg your Majesty to see clearly. Silence. Han Yan snapped before the Emperor could respond. Her eyes narrowing like blades. The Empress commits adultery with an outsider. The evidence is plain. What is there to argue? This girl must be tired of living. If you want to die, fine, but don't drag your entire family down with you. Ruyi froze, terror-stricken, and immediately clamped her mouth shut, not daring to say another word. I understood the situation perfectly. Both the adulterer and Ruyi were pawns carefully arranged by Han Yan to destroy Lu Chao. Their families had been taken hostage. Their lives tightly controlled. They would rather die than resist. Han Yan glanced at the tyrant, a flicker of panic flashing through her eyes. But she quickly regained her composure. Falling back on her usual tricks, she gently tugged at his sleeve, smiled sweetly, and leaned against him like a willow in the breeze. Your Majesty, the sight of death by 1,000 cuts is far too frightening. Your concubine is terrified. Why not have the guards drag that lowlife away and behead him at once? So your Majesty needn't dirty your hands? I narrowed my eyes, the corners of my lips curling into a doting yet meaningful smile. My dear consort, what's the rush? The best part has only just begun. Han Yan's face drained of color. Her body stiffened, and her panicked gaze darted toward the adulterer, who was now wailing and clutching at her skirt like it was his last lifeline. In that instant, she understood. This time, her beauty might not save her. What did the noble consort promise you? Speak clearly, I said coolly. I can grant you a quick, intact death, or have your entire family buried with you. The choice is yours. The man trembled violently, utterly terrified. He didn't dare conceal anything, immediately spilling everything from the silver Han Yan had promised him to the plan of disguising himself as a eunuch to stage the frame up. Moments later, Ruyi also broke down, tears streaming down her face. She knelt and confessed everything, not leaving out a single detail. It was nothing more than a crude, filthy, utterly despicable scheme. Once the truth came out, Han Yan instantly changed tactics, reverting to her former meek and pitiful demeanor. She tried every trick, every expression that had once bewitched the tyrant, hoping I would, as before, ignore right and wrong, forgive her, and pull her into my arms as if nothing had happened. But I wasn't him. And her old tricks no longer worked. Heng, now in Lu Chao's body, immediately regained his composure once cleared of the false accusation. He lifted his head with quiet authority, stepped forward, and said firmly, Your Majesty, I beg you to severely punish Han Yan. But when he saw I didn't immediately fly into a rage, he hesitated. In the end, he could only grit his teeth, swallow his anger, kneel before me, and kowtow. I beg your Majesty to seek justice for your concubine. I found it rather amusing, adapting to the role of Empress so quickly. Were we? Just a few slaps, and all that past deep affection for Han Yan was already forgotten? And as for me, someone who knew nothing of court politics or palace intrigue, dragged here by a bolt of lightning, I had somehow become the supreme authority, the one whose word decided life and death within these walls. How could I possibly let them have their way so easily? If I'm in this game now, then I make the rules. I ordered the adulterer and the maid Ruyi to be beaten to death, removing those two filthy pawns. As for Han Yan, I issued an edict demoting her to the rank of beauty, Miran, and confining her to her palace. Forbidden to step out without permission. I didn't kill her, not out of mercy, but because I didn't want her to die too quickly. A cat always toys with its prey before the final bite, doesn't it? The palace was deep and silent, cold and suffocating. I found myself wondering what kind of interesting stories the new Empress and Beauty Han would write together in the days to come. What I didn't expect was that this edict would be like poking a hornet's nest. Han Yan immediately exploded, crying and throwing a fit, her voice hoarse from wailing. Your Majesty, you used to cherish me like a pearl, hang on my every word. So why now, for the sake of that woman, you cast me aside? She couldn't understand it. Why had the once clueless tyrant, who obeyed her every whim, suddenly become so cold, so decisive, so utterly ruthless? After all, over the past 2 years, Consort Shu, for competing with her for favor, had been thrown into the cold palace, gone mad, and eventually jumped into a well. Lady Zhang, for being too beautiful and attracting frequent visits, had her face ruined by poisoned powder. Talented Lady Ning, invited to the imperial study for her brilliance, had been framed as a spy and died a miserable death, her name erased. Even a nameless maid, merely praised for her soft white hands, had disappeared the very next day. All of it, her doing. So why should she be the one to fall now, her years of scheming collapsing in a single day? Simply because the tyrant was no longer the tyrant, and this time, the one holding the blade was me. Court officials who once dared to denounce Han Yan as an enchantress who bewitched the ruler. A few soft words in the tyrant's ear were enough for him to find an excuse to have them cut in half. Those who dared to plead for them had their backs broken. Crime upon crime, sin piled upon sin. All Han Yan had to do was act coy, whisper sweetly, cast a seductive glance, and the tyrant would fall completely under her spell, slipping step by step from a once promising young ruler into a bloodthirsty fool. The entire harem, from consorts to eunuchs, walked on eggshells around her. Living in constant fear, court officials dared not speak, lowering their heads and pretending to be blind, because a single wrong word could cost them their lives. And the original Lu Chao, despite knowing full well that Han Yan was a calamity to the realm, chose to endure, to retreat, to remain silent in order to protect herself, all while hoping that one day Heng would come to his senses, punish the enchantress, and restore order. Who would have thought she was nothing more than cannon fodder, beginning to end, merely a prop in the tragic love between the tyrant and his enchantress? Only this time, fate had veered off course. Heng had transmigrated into her body. When he saw that Han Yan's punishment was merely demotion and confinement, he flew into a rage and immediately protested. Your Majesty, Beauty Han plotted against the imperial heir. A capital crime, how can she be punished so lightly? I turned, a hint of surprise in my eyes as I looked at him. Oh, what happened to that deep, ocean-like love of yours for the enchantress? Just a few slaps, and you've already cast her aside like a worn-out rag? Or, have you truly woken up? Woken up enough to realize that acting out of character would arouse suspicion. So now you're forcing yourself to play the role of the wronged empress? Watching him, a trace of amusement stirred in my heart. Truly, no script could surpass life itself. Once souls are swapped and roles reversed, even you have learned what it means to feel pain, resentment, and fury. Heng, you were once the executioner. Now, it's your turn to stand on the chopping block. And now, I hold the power. The more dissatisfied they are, the more I enjoy it. So I stepped forward, helped Han Yan to her feet, and said gently, Beauty Han has served me for a long time. She was merely confused for a moment and made a mistake. The Empress is the mother of the nation. She should be magnanimous and tolerant. Why must you be so harsh? Heng froze, struck speechless. Because, those were the exact words he himself had once used to shield Han Yan. And now, I was simply returning them, word for word. I waved my hand lazily and gave the order. This matter is closed. Guards, escort Beauty Han back to her palace and keep her under strict watch. As for the Empress, she carries the imperial heir and requires rest and care. She is not to leave her palace without cause. On one side, the enchantress was dragged away, wailing in despair. On the other, the Empress was treated like a precious jewel. Without another glance, I turned and walked away. Unexpectedly, Heng, in the Empress's body, stepped forward and blocked my path. Your Majesty, please wait. His eyes burned with fury, filled with hatred and killing intent, as if one more step and he would erupt. I understood that look perfectly. With a casual wave of my hand, I dismissed all the guards and servants. Soon, only the two of us remained in the vast hall. One in the Emperor's body, and one carrying the Empress's soul. Before I could say a word, he lunged at me. A powerful force slammed into my chest, knocking me to the ground. In the next instant, his hands clamped around my throat. His eyes were bloodshot, teeth clenched tight. You dare humiliate me like this? I hadn't expected that a man once so high and mighty, after enduring enough humiliation, after being slapped, after being forced to live in a woman's body, would be driven to such madness. But unfortunately for him, the one pushed to the brink before had been me. And now, I was the one sitting on the dragon throne. Caught off guard, I was completely pinned beneath him. Hang straddled me, eyes burning red, jaw tight as if he wanted to devour me whole. Lu Chao, what kind of sorcery did you use? Switch us back, now. Struggling to pry his hands from my throat, I gasped, are you insane? If I die, you'll never be able to switch back. My words struck him like a warning bell. He froze for a split second, then abruptly released me and scrambled backward. But almost immediately, he yanked a hairpin from his own hair and pressed it against my throat. His voice turning icy. Lu Chao, if you don't find a way to switch us back, I'll make sure we both die. I put on an aggrieved expression, tears welling in my eyes. I'm just a weak, delicate woman. You're the one who took over my body. And now you want to kill me? Do you think I wanted this? This is clearly heaven's punishment for all the evil you've done. With no one else in the hall, there was no need to keep up the meek, gentle act. My words came out sharp and cutting. Hang's face twisted with fury. The hand holding the hairpin trembled violently. He looked as though he wanted nothing more than to drive it straight through my throat. But reason held him back. He didn't dare. Because now, he understood. If I died, he would be trapped in this woman's body forever, with no way back. In the end, he swallowed his rage, his entire body deflating like a punctured balloon. He slumped to the floor, head lowered, like a child being punished, his face filled with despair. It was almost pitiful. An arrogant emperor, now forced to accept the reality of being a confined woman. The wheel of karma turns. When it comes around, there's no use complaining. I called for maids and imperial physicians to tend to the bruises on his face. The Empress's once beautiful features were now swollen from the slaps, a sight that stirred a trace of pity. He hissed in pain, grimacing and muttering curses under his breath with every touch of medicine. Utterly devoid of grace. Afterward, he lay sprawled out, staring blankly at the ceiling, probably cursing that lightning strike to the heavens. Still, this body was undeniably beautiful. And now, with that added layer of dishevelment and despair, it looked even more heartbreakingly fragile. To give him a sliver of hope, I suddenly clapped my hands as if struck by realization. That's it. It must have been the lightning. He snapped his head toward me instantly, his eyes lighting up as though he'd grasped a lifeline. Yes, that must be it. We should go outside and wait for another lightning strike. Before I could react, he grabbed my hand and dragged me out into the courtyard like a madman. But tonight, the sky was clear, a bright moon hung overhead, a gentle breeze drifting through the air. There wasn't a single cloud in sight, let alone lightning. As for me, I wasn't exactly eager to switch back. But I also couldn't stand his sulking, shouting, and near tearful tantrums. So in the end, I sat with him beneath the moonlight, waiting blankly for that impossible miracle. He sat upright, head held high, eyes bright with anticipation, as if the next bolt of lightning would set everything right. Moonlight blended with the warm glow of palace lanterns, casting a soft, honeyed sheen across his cheeks. That beauty was flawless, almost unreal, like something out of an ancient painting. At that moment, he truly looked like a classical beauty brought to life. Slender shoulders, dignified bearing, elegant and noble, born to be the mother of the nation. And for the first time, I truly understood the saying. Love the country, but love the beauty more. Because beauty, after all, is its own kind of justice. A beauty like this was meant to be cherished. My mood at that moment was indescribably good, my entire being radiating a steady, almost indulgent calm. He, in the Empress's form, leaned against me like a fledgling seeking shelter, a scene that felt perfectly natural. To make him feel better, I shifted slightly and drew him closer into my arms. I even half hoped he'd look up, cast me a soft, tender glance, then rest his head obediently against my chest, just like in those idle historical dramas. Instead, he jerked upright as if struck by lightning, panic written all over his face. Like a lion with salt rubbed into its mane, he glared at me with absolute vigilance. Lu Chao, what are you trying to do? Stop those filthy thoughts right now. You think just because you're in my body, you can do whatever you want? I'm a real man. There's no way I'd ever do something like that. I nearly laughed out loud. Even now, he was still putting on a brave front, refusing to accept reality. The Empress's soft, delicate body was now in my hands. I could do whatever I pleased. Who told him to be so high and mighty before? Tormenting others at will? Now that he'd fallen into my grasp, it was only fair I returned the favor. And to play the role of Empress properly, one must start with the smallest details. So then, His Majesty's How to Be a Proper Woman lessons officially begin. Hang, get ready, I'm about to teach you the meaning of gentleness. My way. I wasn't angry, nor in any hurry. I simply walked toward him, slow and unhurried. Hang, now in Lu Chao's body, was so tense he leaned backward, still trying to bluff his way through. Lu Chao, don't you dare do anything. But now, with the height and strength belonging to me, all it took was a slight lean forward for my shadow to fall over him. Soft, yet inescapable, like a cage. Before he could react, I reached out and firmly grasped his waist. With the slightest force, I pulled him easily into my arms. He went rigid, his hands pressed weakly against my chest. But the Empress's frail body had no strength to speak of. Looking down at him, my gaze said everything. The roles are reversed now. Don't bother struggling. My voice was low, cold as ice. You are the Empress. I can do whatever I want. Seeing me lean in, he clearly thought I was about to force a kiss. His face twisted in resistance as he turned his head away, even squeezing his eyes shut in disgust. But I didn't kiss him. I simply tilted my head, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, I am the Emperor now. Pleasing me is the Empress's duty. Unless you want others to think you've lost your mind, then wake up. Your Majesty, the Empress. The last few words slipped out almost like a hiss, each one piercing straight into him. Hang trembled, his voice beginning to falter. What do you want? A faint smile curved my lips, my eyes gleaming like a fox that had finally caught its prey. Remember? Back then, listening to your enchantress's whispers, you nearly killed me, and the child in my womb. And now, you're lucky I haven't killed you yet. You'd better behave, so I can vent my anger. Slowly. He bit his lip, still trying to defend himself. I was bewitched by that woman. It was just a moment of confusion. I let out a cold laugh. A moment of confusion? Do you even remember how many people died because of that moment? Consort Shu, talented Lady Ning, even innocent maids, with just a glance from you, they were condemned to death. Now it's your turn. To taste every second of the role you once despised. That's the sweetest form of revenge. Those wronged souls. I stared at him, my voice dropping lower. Sooner or later, they'll come back for you. Hang's face turned pale, yet he still forced himself to retort. Back then, I was the Emperor. Whoever I wanted dead, died. I raised an eyebrow, enunciating each word slowly. And now, I am the Emperor. I decide who lives, and who dies. The moment I finished speaking, he fell silent, his eyes going blank. He stayed that way for a while, and then suddenly burst into tears. Wah! Exclamation mark quote. It was a cry that seemed to release all the pent-up frustration, helplessness, anger, and fear of the past few days. And honestly, it made sense. Hang was only in his early 20s, used to being revered, his word absolute, never having suffered any real hardship. And now, his throne was gone, he was trapped in a woman's body, slapped senseless by his own guards, and forced to learn how to be a virtuous wife and good mother. Who wouldn't lose their mind? So I understood. I let him cry, even patting his back gently to comfort him. There, if anyone saw this, they'd think I was bullying you. Just accept it and be the Empress. It may not be perfect, but at least, you're alive. I paused, then added more seriously. And stop waiting for lightning. I worked hard to become Emperor. I have no intention of switching back. Blank. When I returned to my palace, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. From a hellish opening, I had completely turned the tables and seized the winning hand. That useless system might have gone silent, but at least it hadn't treated me too badly. Still, Hang had left behind quite a mess. He'd been such a terrible emperor that he'd lost the people's hearts. His reputation utterly ruined as a tyrant. Now that I'd taken the throne, nothing would come easy. And I already knew how the story ended. The prince rebels. The tyrant commits suicide. The enchantress follows him in death. You could practically smell the tragedy. Fortunately, we were still in the early stages. As long as the Empress remained safe, so would her brother, the Grand General who guarded the realm. If he didn't rebel, the country would remain unshakable. So if I wanted to survive in this world, I had to replace Heng and become a true emperor. An emperor worthy of the title. Blank. Blank. The next day, I entered the Golden Throne Hall on time and took my seat upon the Dragon Throne. It was a scene I'd seen countless times in dramas. But now that I was actually here, I couldn't help feeling a trace of nervousness. Luckily, all the civil and military officials kept their heads lowered, not daring to look directly at me. The weight of imperial authority still held. For simple matters in the memorials, I issued decisions directly. For more complicated ones, I smiled faintly and asked, "What do my ministers think?" Immediately, the loyal Grand Secretary, the upright imperial uncle, and several seasoned ministers stepped forward to deliberate. I listened, weighed their words, and largely adopted their reasonable suggestions. Thinking about how these very men had been unjustly executed in the original story sent a chill through me. They were the pillars of the nation. When they sensed my attitude was different, they showed brief surprise, then relief, like the first light breaking through dark clouds. Blank. On the other hand, the treacherous ministers, those who had thrived under the tyrant's ignorance, seemed not to notice the change at all. Still slick-tongued and cunning, they tried to guide me as they always had. "Your Majesty is wise, this servant believes." Quote. I narrowed my eyes. These were the ones I despised the most. Heng might have been a fool. But I wasn't. And since I still wore the crown of a tyrant, let's see how you fare against a clever one. It was time to show them what thunder from a clear sky truly meant. It was time to purge the court. Blank. Since I already bore the reputation of a foolish tyrant, why bother with appearances? If I wanted someone dead, all I needed was an excuse. The chief sycophant was torn apart by 5 horses. Charge. Foul mouth. Offensive speech. The second had his tongue cut out and was exiled to the frontier. Crime. Too talkative. The remaining flatterers, pale as death, knelt trembling on the cold floor like discarded trash. I didn't kill them. Why? Because I understood something well. Water that's too clear holds no fish. Some filth must remain. Not for indulgence, but as a warning, as contrast. Sycophants could exist, but only the kind who knew their place. After this, kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, display. I deliberately left a few behind, to remind the entire court. This is my court. And I make the rules. Blank. A few days later, the officials all believed I had a sudden change of heart. His Majesty has reformed, the nation will surely prosper. They were moved. If only they knew, I hadn't changed. I was simply someone else. Blank. Just as the court began to stabilize and I thought I could finally relax, the harem stirred once more. That once quiet palace was now brewing another storm. I sat upon the dragon throne and let out a faint smirk. Excellent. From court to harem, I'd deal with them all, one by one. After the morning session, I was in an excellent mood. I even planned to stroll through the imperial garden, admire the newly blooming peonies, and clear my mind. But before I could reach the flowers, one of the Empress's maids came running in, breathless. Your Majesty, the Empress, she's suffering severe morning sickness. She can't keep anything down. She's dizzy, she's even fainted in her palace. Well, it was common enough for people in the palace to have weak constitutions. Especially while carrying the imperial heir. It was only natural, she needed proper nourishment to stabilize her energy and strength. But this concerned the imperial heir, a matter of state, so I couldn't take it lightly. I immediately ordered my palanquin and went in person to the Empress's palace. By the time I arrived, the imperial physician had just finished acupuncture to revive her. Everyone in the hall was kneeling, pale and trembling, awaiting punishment. Heng had already regained consciousness. He lay weakly on the bed, frail as a willow branch, holding a bowl of medicine. The air was thick with the faint sweetness of tonics. When he saw me enter, he looked up, his eyes full of grievance, like a wronged wife. It had only been a few days, yet he had visibly lost weight. His face was gaunt, his whole figure exuding a fragile, pitiful air. I had to suppress a laugh. Understanding the situation, I waved my hand and dismissed everyone. Soon, only the two of us remained. The moment we were alone, he grabbed my hand, his voice choked with desperation. Donger, can we switch back? I promise I won't hurt you again. I don't want to be pregnant. I don't want to give birth. I laughed coldly inside. Now you don't want to give birth? Back then, when you pushed me into this situation, did you ever think whether I was willing? Everyone knows that pregnancy and childbirth are like stepping halfway into death. And now you speak of switching back as if it's nothing? Now that the child is in your womb, sorry. You don't get a choice anymore. You forced others before. Now it's your turn to repay it all. Blank. Blank. I looked at him and corrected him calmly. You are Donger, my Empress. This child, from beginning to end, is both your child and mine. Bearing the father's blood and carried by the mother, of pure lineage. This child will undoubtedly be the rightful crown prince. He immediately lost control, clutching his belly and shouting. I'm not giving birth. I'm not. I feel sick all day. I throw up everything I eat. My head spins. I feel like I'm dying. If you don't fix this, I'll tell the entire court everything. I raised an eyebrow. Still trying to threaten me? They say pregnancy makes one foolish. Seems true enough. I thought he'd gotten smarter. But now he was back to square one. Crossing my arms, I replied coolly. You think anyone would believe you? All I have to do is say, the Empress has lost her mind, and you're finished. You don't want to give birth? Fine, abort it. It's not like I lack women to bear my children. Don't think you can use this child to force my hand. Heng was furious, slapping his own belly, but even that lacked real force. More like a desperate act. I simply stood there, unmoved. Abort it or keep it. It's your choice. But remember, once the child is gone, you'll have nothing left to secure your position as Empress. Blank. At that moment, a maid rushed in and knelt. Your Majesty, urgent news from the harem. One matter barely settled, and another arises. The palace truly never rests. The report. The demoted beauty Han, pining for the emperor, had fallen ill. After fainting, the imperial physician examined her, and discovered she was over a month pregnant. I laughed out loud, not bothering to hide my delight. Right in front of Heng, I waved my hand and issued the decree. Release Beauty Han from confinement. Reward her with my favored jade pillow. Ensure she is well cared for so she may deliver safely. I will visit her later. As I finished speaking, I turned, and met Heng's gaze. Burning with fury, his hands instinctively clutched his belly tighter. I smirked. Congratulations to you as well. Don't be upset, your child, no matter who bears it, is still mine. Don't worry, I'll take good care of my heirs. Perhaps Beauty Han will give you a prince. Then whether you give birth or not won't matter much. Heng stared at me, face ashen, as if struck at the very core of his pride. I never thought, after swapping bodies, even your heart would change. You've truly become ruthless. I smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong. I wasn't the old Lu Chao. I was a modern person. More pragmatic, more clear-headed. It wasn't that I was heartless. I simply understood one thing. The more weakness you show, the easier it is to be crushed. I let out a cold snort. You're the father, and now the mother as well. If neither side wants the child, ending it is just a matter of will. So what exactly are you clinging to? I'm still young. The harem is full of beauties. If I wanted children, how many couldn't I have? With that, I turned and left, leaving him drowning in shattered pride and tangled emotions. I had barely taken a few steps when I heard his voice behind me. Trembling. I'll give birth, all right? It sounded like a sob caught in his throat. A final surrender. I didn't turn back, but a faint smile curved my lips. In a battle like this, the first one to yield, loses. After leaving the Empress's palace, I went straight to see Han Yan. The moment she saw me, she swayed forward and threw herself into my arms like a falling petal. Truly worthy of the title, Enchantress. Soft body, slender waist, full curves, holding her was undeniably pleasant. But in the next instant, images of her coldly framing others flashed through my mind, and I nearly shoved her away outright. Then I paused. If she died too soon, the Empress might get bored. Better to keep her around a little longer, for entertainment. I raised my hand and pushed her away, my expression turning cold and imperial. Beauty Han, don't think that being pregnant gives you free rein. You are still guilty. Bearing me a son is your foremost duty. She froze, clearly confused. Her former arrogance had always relied on the tyrant's favor. Now that this tyrant had turned cold, she immediately lost her footing. After a moment, she knelt, tears shimmering in her eyes, her voice soft and submissive. Your Majesty, your concubine knows her fault. I will not anger you again. I only beg that your Majesty visits me more often. I nodded lightly. You are with child, I will not treat you poorly. Once you bear me a prince, it will count as atonement. Then, I may reconsider your position. Her eyes lifted, filled with a mix of joy, fear, and doubt. Good, she still had hope. And hope was the easiest thing to manipulate. Blank, underscore, blank. I added, gently but deliberately. For both the Empress and my consort to be pregnant at the same time. It is truly a blessing for the nation. It's just a pity the Empress is a few days ahead and has been suffering terribly from morning sickness. It pains me to see her like this. Before I even finished, the smile in her eyes stiffened. Yes, that's it. Jealousy clouds judgment. And clouded judgment leads to mistakes. Blank, underscore, blank. Do your best to avoid the Empress. I instructed softly, do not provoke her. She nodded quickly, hiding the resentment in her eyes with practiced ease. This concubine will remember your Majesty's words. I merely smiled. Blank, underscore, blank. Back in the imperial study, I immediately summoned trusted eunuchs and maids to make arrangements. At present, the Empress's pregnancy was the highest priority. Every move, every breath of Beauty Han, had to be monitored. All food, medicine, flowers, and items entering or leaving her palace were to be strictly inspected. Especially substances like musk, safflower, camellia, almonds, anything that could disturb the pregnancy, must never come near the Empress. By dusk, Eunuch Laifu reported. Your Majesty, everything has been arranged. Have the informants taken their positions? I asked. All have been placed. Neither side suspects anything. I nodded in satisfaction. Good, keep watch. Report any changes immediately. Blank, underscore, blank. Then I stood leisurely. The Mid-Autumn Festival is in 10 days. With double blessings in the harem. Announce a grand banquet. After Laifu withdrew, I couldn't help but smile. This Mid-Autumn banquet? Once a tyrant, once a favored consort. Now one a pregnant empress. The other a wise emperor. How interesting. Blank, underscore, blank. Before the banquet could even arrive, someone made their move. That day, I visited Heng. He was slowly sipping red date millet porridge, the only thing he could keep down. Since learning of Han Yan's pregnancy, he had quieted down, no longer making a fuss. He forced himself to eat, even if he vomited afterward. Halfway through the bowl, he frowned. Today's porridge, it's sweet, but there's a faint sourness. It's different. Did they change the recipe? The head maid quickly bowed. Your Highness, it's the same as before. Nothing was changed. He murmured, rubbing his belly. Strange, but it tastes better. Standing beside him, my heart suddenly turned cold. Sweet porridge with a sour note? There were only two possibilities. Either the red dates had gone bad, or someone had added something extra. Keeping my expression unchanged, I stepped forward and snatched the bowl from his hands, leaning in to examine it closely. Beneath the rich scent of red dates, there was a faint, hidden sour note. I frowned. Hawthorn. Not strong, but enough to disturb a pregnancy if consumed in excess. I turned to Zhang Yue. When were today's ingredients taken from the storehouse? My expression gradually hardened. If this wasn't a coincidence, then someone was trying to send the Empress to her death. and that someone was very likely within this very harem. The silent game had begun. Whoever couldn't hold back and made the first move wouldn't be able to blame me for being ruthless. Blank, underscore, blank. Zhang Yue trembled as she replied. Your Majesty, only the red dates were delivered fresh today. All other ingredients were from yesterday's stock. I let out a cold laugh. Anything out of the ordinary was a problem. The strange scent had to be coming from this batch of fresh dates. I ordered her to bring them over for inspection. At first glance, they looked perfectly normal, plump, glossy, and fragrant, but when I pressed one lightly, the flesh felt unnaturally soft, as though it had been soaked. I split one open. The pit had been hollowed out. Inside was a fine, dark red powder. The workmanship was meticulous, almost impossible to detect without careful inspection. The strong fragrance of the dates masked it completely, but up close, there was still that faint trace of hawthorn. My heart sank. It was a calculated poisoning. Excessive hawthorn could induce uterine contractions in pregnant women, leading to miscarriage, or even stillbirth. And with this quantity, enough for half a month, no one would suspect a thing. By the time it was discovered, the child in Heng's womb would likely already be lost. Blank, underscore, blank. I immediately ordered Lifu. Check the ingredient logs, entries and withdrawals, focus on hawthorn, and don't alert anyone. Before long, he returned. Your Majesty, ever since your decree to tighten control over the harem, no one has drawn hawthorn from the stores. I let out a cold laugh. Perfect. No one had taken any, yet it had appeared anyway. So who brought it in? And how? This trap was so subtle that if I hadn't inspected that date, even discovering it later would have been too late. I shot Lifu a sharp look. Investigate. Even a sealed barrel has its cracks. Do I keep you for decoration? Lifu wiped the sweat from his brow, bowed deeply, and hurried off. Blank, underscore, blank. Only then did Heng, silent until now, speak coldly, his voice laced with venom. No need to investigate further. I know who hates me enough to kill my own flesh and blood. His eyes burned red with rage. The word, I, slipped out unconsciously, heavy with hatred. This was no longer a simple case of harem jealousy. Someone truly wanted the tyrant's child dead. Or wanted the Empress dead. It must be her, he said through clenched teeth. She loves hawthorn the most. She always said it aids digestion, that it tastes sweet and sour. In the past, the finest hawthorn tributes all went to her. Others might not understand, but I did. After all, she had once been his favorite. Anything rare or delicious, hadn't he given it all to her? And now, those very things had come back to bite him. A perfect turn of karma. Blank, underscore, blank. Heng trembled with rage, sweeping the bowl of dates to the floor. Vicious woman, truly vicious. She dares strike at me? I took the opportunity to press further. She's not targeting you, she's targeting the Empress carrying the imperial heir. Hasn't she done things like this before? Didn't you always turn a blind eye? His jaw tightened. I never thought she'd be this cruel. To try and kill my child. Kill her, you must kill her. I replied calmly. If the evidence is clear, I won't let her off. But for now, she's also pregnant. Any punishment must wait until after the child is born. He was so furious he couldn't speak, collapsing onto the bed, his face flushed dark with anger. I stepped forward and spoke more gently. Rest well, be extra careful with your food and daily routine. Don't expose this yet, let's see what other moves she makes. Blank, underscore, blank. As I turned to leave, he suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice weak and pleading. Donger, I was wrong before. I was blinded by that snake. Now you're the emperor, you have to protect me. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I patted his hand lightly and smiled. You're carrying the imperial heir. Of course I'll protect you. Don't worry, no one will harm you. Blank, underscore, blank. The moment I stepped out of the palace, I almost laughed. Already this afraid? Did you think being Empress would be easy? Live a little longer, and you'll understand. The harem has never been a peaceful place. Blank, underscore, blank. The Hawthorne case was investigated in secret. The direct culprit was a young eunuch, but he had already been silenced. Tracing the lead further, We discovered he was from the same hometown as Han Yan. Back home, he had a widowed mother and 2 younger siblings. Living in poverty, with the Han family's support, he had been willing to risk his life. The truth was clear. I quietly noted the debt. There would be time to settle it. At last, the Mid-Autumn Festival arrived. The entire harem gathered, dressed in splendor. The banquet was grand and dazzling. Han Yan made her first appearance since being released from confinement. As expected, she was exquisitely adorned, her robes luxurious, her slightly rounded belly hinted at the imperial air, and her pride was unmistakable, her gaze sliding over others like a serpent coiling around its prey. Yet her rank was now only beauty, placing her near the bottom. She sat far across the hall, opposite me and the Empress. Even so, she still carried herself as if she stood above everyone, as though bearing the imperial air made her untouchable. Beside her was her beloved pet dog, Wangsai, a fluffy white Pekingese. But today, something was off. Its eyes were red, and it seemed agitated, constantly growling and barking, restless, almost as if it had lost control. I remembered from the original story that the Empress was terribly afraid of dogs. Back when Han Yan was at the height of her favor, she would often bring that dog to the Empress's palace, forcing her to kneel and cry in humiliation. Now she was repeating the same trick. Bringing the dog here, her gaze sharp as blades. This was no coincidence. Only, today the distance was too great for her to act directly. Sure enough, a few consorts began whispering. Unbelievable, bringing a dog to a banquet. How vulgar. Exactly, this is a gathering for people, not a kennel. No matter how favored you are, you should at least know propriety. Han Yan sat at a distance, ears sharp as a fox's, catching every word, yet she maintained a calm smile, her fingers tightening imperceptibly on the armrest. It seemed the first act of this mid-autumn entertainment had already begun. She rolled her eyes and spoke with a syrupy edge. Some people fawn above and bully below, not even as good as a loyal dog. As she spoke, she deliberately made a show of it, picking up a piece of lamb and feeding it to Wangsai, who lay in her maid's arms. The dog gobbled it down, and she smiled brightly. See, much more sensible than certain people. From my high seat, I could only think. How amusing. A live palace drama unfolding right before my eyes. Smiles on every face, yet the air thick with gunpowder. Where there are many women, there is conflict, always. As long as they didn't cross the line, I had no intention of stopping them. Let them vent, better than letting resentment fester. Blank, underscore, blank. After the opening performance, Consort Wei, once close to Han Yan, raised her cup and said with a smile. Speaking of performances, I still remember Beauty Han's backbend dance. So graceful, so soft, truly unforgettable. It's a pity she's with child now. We may have to wait until next year to see it again. Before she even finished, Han Yan laughed lightly. This concubine is only a little over a month along. My body is still light. Not like some who are weak and sickly all day. If younger sister wishes to see it, I can still dance for His Majesty, though I wonder, would His Majesty approve? As she spoke, both she and Consort Wei looked toward me, their gazes filled with suggestion. Their coordination was flawless, words and glances flowing as if rehearsed. I understood immediately. Han Yan was gambling. She wanted to use this dance to win back favor, to prove that even while pregnant, she remained the Emperor's most enchanting woman. Blank, underscore, blank. Below, Heng, now in Lu Chao's body, sat stiffly, his face pale, his chest rising and falling with suppressed anger. I deliberately turned to him and smiled gently. Well then, my consort, perform a dance to amuse me. His clenched hands trembled. He looked ready to flip the table, but didn't dare. I raised an eyebrow. This round was mine. Blank, underscore, blank. Han Yan's dance was, indeed, exquisite. Her body flowed like water, each movement graceful yet alluring, enough to make the entire hall fall silent. When she finished, a light sheen of sweat covered her skin. Her cheeks flushed, making her even more captivating. Her gaze drifted toward me, soft and expectant. Was I pleased? I clapped lazily and smiled. A beautiful dance. Then added lightly. Next time, don't dance. In a single sentence, her radiant expression froze. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed instantly. A few consorts in the hall couldn't help but stifle laughter. Even Heng's lips curved slightly. A rare moment of relief in his eyes. Blank. Blank. But I wasn't finished. I continued, my tone warm as a spring breeze. I simply feel for you. Carrying the imperial air and dancing like that. It's not good for your health. Come here, sit beside me. At once, Han Yan brightened, flying toward me like a sparrow returning to its nest, her smile blooming like a peach blossom. Meanwhile, Heng, and the other consorts, stiffened, their expressions darkening instantly. Blank. And then, something unexpected happened. Wangsai, the Pekingese in the maid's arms, suddenly struggled violently, barking sharply as it broke free and dashed into the center of the hall. But it didn't run toward Han Yan. It charged straight at Heng. Blank. The moment Heng saw it, his face turned pale. He leapt up instinctively, knocking over the tea table in front of him. But the dog was already upon him, leaping high, eyes bloodshot, teeth bared as if ready to tear him apart. It all happened too fast. The entire hall gasped. No one had time to react. Moments ago, it was dancing and music. Now, it was about to turn into blood and chaos. Palace drama never stayed at mere words. Blank. Protect the Empress, I shouted. But the next sound wasn't a scream. It was a heavy thud, followed by a sharp yelp. I froze and turned. Heng had twisted aside, his leg just retracting, a maid rushing to steady him. He had kicked the dog clear across the hall. Wangsai now lay curled on the ground, whimpering pitifully, both miserable and humiliated. I almost forgot. Lu Chao had feared dogs. But inside her was Heng. And Heng, an emperor with a man's pride, would never be afraid of a mere lapdog. Just as the atmosphere tightened like a drawn bowstring, Han Yan let out a shrill scream. Wangsai, my heart, what's wrong with you? Then she immediately turned to me, eyes brimming with tears, voice trembling. Your Majesty, Wangsai was injured by the Empress's kick. You must stand up for him. Stand up for your concubine. As if she and that dog were the ones wronged. Not a single word about how it had just lunged straight at the pregnant Empress's belly. Ridiculous. She still thought a dance could win back favor? And now she dared to cry and throw a tantrum in the middle of the hall? My expression turned cold, my voice dropping. Silence. That beast nearly harmed the Empress and the imperial heir. I haven't even questioned you yet. And you dare complain? I paused, then added sharply. In fact, I'm beginning to wonder, was this dog trained by someone? Otherwise, how would it dare charge directly at the Empress? Or is there someone behind this, pulling the strings? Han Yan froze, panic flashing across her face. She stammered, Your Majesty, Wangsai is only a dog. It understands nothing. It must have panicked when it saw me move. This concubine failed to restrain it properly. I beg your Majesty and Her Highness to forgive me. By now, Heng had fully slipped into the role of Empress. Fury surged through him as he pointed straight at the dog, his voice sharp and high. It came straight for me. It wanted to kill my child. His chest rose violently. This is too obvious. Someone must be behind it. Your Majesty, Beauty Han is venomous at heart. She must not be spared. I narrowed my eyes, my gaze turning blade sharp. A counterattack? With just a dog? She wasn't qualified to play the final villain. After the Wangsai attacks the Empress incident, the entire harem erupted into whispers. The consorts she had once oppressed seized the chance to strike back all at once. Beauty Han clearly intended to harm someone. At a palace banquet, bringing a dog, what kind of decorum is that? Even Consort Wei, who had just been praising her moments ago, swiftly changed her tone. This servant only admired her dance. Who would have thought she'd bring a dog into the hall? Such a setting, how could animals be allowed? With the tide turning against her, Han Yan had no choice but to bow her head and cry. This concubine admits her fault. I beg your Majesty, for the sake of past affection, spare my life, and Wankei's. I lifted a brow coldly. Beside me, Heng sat with a dark expression, not even sparing her a glance. Perhaps at this moment, he finally saw clearly. The one he once cherished most was nothing more than a rose with poisonous thorns. A beautiful snake in disguise. I had no interest in dragging things out. With a casual wave of my hand, I delivered the verdict. Beauty Han brought a dog into the banquet, causing disorder in the palace and nearly harming the Empress and the imperial heir. The crime is grave, however, considering her pregnancy and the festive occasion. I will not impose a harsh punishment. My tone turned colder. From this moment on, Beauty Han and her dog Wangxi are confined to her palace. No one is to leave without permission. Further judgment will be decided after she gives birth. The decree sent ripples through the hall. Han Yan's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she clutched the dog, lowering her head in silence. I thought this blow would be enough to make her behave. Keep her head down, carry the child quietly, and stop stirring trouble. I even hoped for a few days of peace to focus on court affairs. But I had underestimated her. A woman who could climb from a concubine's daughter to a favored consort, from a mere beauty to a player in the game of power, was never simple. In the old world, there was a saying, if you don't court death, you won't die. But Han Yan was someone who specialized in walking straight toward death. Draped in fine silks, standing tall in embroidered shoes, with a smile that was never sincere. This game was far from over, and she had no intention of stopping. Ever since the dog incident at the banquet, I visited Heng almost every day. He still vomited until the world spun, his face pale and gaunt. But he no longer cried about not wanting to give birth. He couldn't tolerate anything greasy. Just the smell of stew made him faint. All day, he could only manage a little millet porridge with red dates or steamed bird's nest with rock sugar. The kind of delicate fare fit for a pampered consort. Already slender, he was now so thin a gust of wind might carry him away. In his palace, everyone, from imperial physicians to maids to wet nurses, was in a panic, like ants on a hot pan. After all, I had given a simple oral decree. If anything happens to the Empress, every single one of you will be buried with her. No shouting, just a quiet sentence, but enough to make the entire harem tremble. Truth be told, I'm not really a tyrant. I've just read too many domineering CEO novels and picked up the habit. In those stories, a single line from the male lead could shake heaven and earth. So I tried it myself. Turns out, the effect isn't bad at all. When no one was around, Heng would grab my hand, tears and snot all over his face, choking out, "Donger, I never knew pregnancy could be this hard. Let's not switch back, I'll carry it for you. You don't need to suffer." He'd sniff and add, "I was blind before, misled by that wicked woman. Now I understand, only you are truly good to me." I only smiled faintly. Whether he meant it or not, only he knew. In the original story, before Han Yan entered the palace, he and Lu Chao had shared genuine affection. There was a foundation there. And now, carrying a child himself, enduring this relentless sickness, it was enough to soften anyone. At least a little. It reminded me of my aunt back in my old world. She'd suffered terribly during pregnancy too. Vomiting everything she ate, barely holding on, until we discovered the only thing she could keep down was tofu. Soft tofu pudding. There was no tofu in this world. But I remembered how a neighbor used to make it when I was young. It wasn't complicated, just soy milk and the right amount of gypsum. So I dragged a group of servants into the imperial kitchen and experimented for half a day. Batch after batch failed, until finally, a bowl of smooth, silky, snow-white tofu came together. I personally brought it to Heng. The moment he saw it, his eyes lit up. What is this?" I smiled. "Tofu. It won't make you sick. Try it." He took a spoonful, hesitated for a second, then his eyes brightened. Another bite, and another. Soon, the entire bowl was gone. I just sat there watching him eat, thinking to myself, raising a pregnant empress really isn't easy. But since I took the throne, I might as well see it through. After that first taste, Heng was completely hooked. "No sugar," he insisted. "Plain is best. Light, subtly sweet. It doesn't make me nauseous." So between millet porridge, bird's nest, and handmade tofu, he slowly got through the worst of those early months. Meanwhile, I didn't forget to visit Han Yan. What struck me was how stable she was. While Heng was pale and vomiting constantly, she showed none of the usual symptoms. No fatigue, no nausea, just the occasional token retch for show. She ate well, never skipped fruits or snacks. Her complexion rosy, her energy abundant, more radiant than before her pregnancy. I even asked her attending physician in private. He bowed and said, "Beauty Han's pregnancy is very stable. All signs are excellent. This servant sees nothing unusual." I nodded at the time, thinking only that pregnancies differed Some suffer endlessly, others glide through like immortals. As time passed, Hang's belly grew larger, his movements slower, needing support with every step. Strangely, his temper improved. Though he still complained occasionally. Whenever his hand rested on his belly, he would smile, soft, gentle, almost maternal. Once, we sat together, both hands resting on the curve of his stomach, feeling the faint stir of life inside. For a moment, it felt warm. But Han Yan was different. No matter how many times I suggested it, she never let me touch her belly. I joked once, "What's there to be shy about? It's my child too." She only smiled it off with excuses. Gradually, something felt off. Was the child in her womb even real? Or was this all part of a bigger scheme? Perhaps in this palace, giving birth wasn't about raising a child at all, but about harming someone. In truth, a little intimacy during pregnancy was perfectly normal. I'd reached out more than once, wanting to feel her belly. Yet every time, she avoided me smoothly, smiling sweetly while keeping her distance, as if she had rehearsed it countless times. My suspicion deepened, and sure enough, not long after, the informant I'd planted near her returned quietly. In their hands was a piece of white undergarment, stained with dried patches of red. My heart sank instantly. This wasn't bleeding from a pregnancy complication. It was menstruation. Han Yan wasn't pregnant at all. The symptoms, the physician's reports, the growing belly, it was all fake. A carefully staged performance that had lasted for months. Fake blood, fake belly, fake records, just to maintain her position and remain in the harem. I clenched my fist, anger rising in my chest. Even I was stunned for a moment. Truly, the most beautiful snake carries the deadliest venom. Han Yan, you dared to deceive me using the imperial heir. Good, very good. Then don't blame me for showing no mercy when I make my move. When I personally tore away Han Yan's silk robes and pulled from her waistband a bundle of soft cotton padding her false pregnancy belly. Her face drained of all blood, and she collapsed to the ground unconscious. The decree was issued. All the servants, maids, and imperial physicians in her palace were immediately detained for interrogation. Within half an hour, under the pressure of ancient-style interrogation, beating and questioning, they all confessed cleanly. But, besides the truth about the fake pregnancy, they also gifted me an even bigger bombshell. Han Yan, before entering the palace, had cultivated a love worm. The GU cultivator was her trusted wet nurse. Originally from the mountainous regions of the southwest, this GU insect was raised to make Hang infatuated with her beyond reason. To love her blindly, dote on her irrationally, and obey her as if bewitched. This perfectly explained all those strange moments of blindness from the past. If she had known to keep her mouth shut and behave as a proper consort, with a love worm in her possession, she might have been favored until the end of her life. But unfortunately, she was cast as the enchantress, not the wise consort. Her whole life, she only knew pleasure, enjoyment, power, oppressing others, causing chaos in the harem, killing without batting an eye. The real turning point came the moment I transmigrated. Our souls swapped, lightning struck, and with it, that so-called love was shattered. From then on, Hang gradually woke up. He began to see Han Yan's true face, his feelings shifting from blind favor to fear, from obsession to hatred. And she never got the chance to plant the GU again. Everything came out through the confession of her trusted maid. The fake pregnancy had never been a one-woman act. Behind it was an entire web. Her personal maids, her wet nurse, even physicians within the Imperial Medical Bureau, all working together. At the start, the false pregnancy was only meant as a temporary scheme to regain favor. Once she secured it, she would stage a miscarriage, winning sympathy while using the opportunity to strike at the Empress. But she hadn't expected me. I neither restored her favor nor elevated her rank. I gave her only one path: give birth to a prince. And you may atone for your crimes. That was when she panicked. Because once the pregnancy disappeared, she would have nothing left to bind the emperor to her. That fear drove her to continue the lie. And in the end, it was that very fear that pushed her toward destruction. Knowing there was no turning back, Han Yan chose to gamble everything. She intended to play the role of a pregnant woman to the very end. Waiting until her supposed Labor Day, then secretly smuggle a baby boy into the palace and pass him off as the imperial heir. Every step was a wager with her life. Every move carefully calculated. Only, she forgot that I was no longer the foolish emperor she once manipulated so easily. This time, I showed no mercy. The fake imperial physicians, the maids who served her, the complicit midwives, all were flogged to death. Their bodies displayed within the inner court. The Han family was thoroughly investigated, their property confiscated, their members exiled. As for Han Yan, I didn't allow her to live another day. I granted her a cup of poison and 3 feet of white silk. Before her death, she begged repeatedly to see me. Just once, let me see His Majesty once. But I remembered everything, how she framed me, how she set her dog on me, how she plotted again and again to make me miscarry in humiliation. So I denied her even that final wish. Even in death, she would not see me again. In the end, dressed in her thinnest robes, she danced her famous backbend one last time. Alone in the empty hall. One figure, one shadow, her movements still graceful, still enchanting, but there was no applause. No audience, only the cold silence of the palace. Then she lifted the cup of poison, tilted her head back, and drank it in one motion. That was her final dance. And the last memory between her and the tyrant who had once loved her so fiercely. One dance, farewell to a lifetime. Spring arrived, and Heng's labor drew near. He grew increasingly anxious, clutching my hand every day. Eyes red, voice trembling. Does it hurt a lot? Will I die? I'm scared. I don't want to give birth. I don't want to die. When the contractions began, he completely broke down, screaming in pain, his cries echoing through the palace, turning every servant pale with fear. The imperial physicians and maids all urged me to leave, saying my presence would bring bad luck. I spoke slowly, each word firm and heavy. A woman giving birth walks half a step into the gates of hell. I bear the aura of the Son of Heaven, precisely to protect the Empress. Let the underworld dare not come near her. The room fell silent. No one dared speak again. Heng looked at me, eyes glistening. Gradually, the panic in his gaze faded. I sat beside him, holding his hand the entire time, speaking softly. It's all right, you can do this. I'm here, no one will take you from me. I've never given birth, but I've read that the pain reaches level 10. Like having 10 ribs broken at once. Just imagining it is enough to make one's spine go cold. And that pain was supposed to be mine. 5 hours. For 5 full hours, Heng writhed on the bed. In such agony he nearly passed out several times. At last, amid a loud, vigorous cry, a little prince was born. Before I could even react, Heng threw himself into my arms, clutching me tightly, crying uncontrollably. It hurts so much, giving birth hurts so much. I'm never doing it again. Never again. Even if you beg me. Even if you plead, I won't do it. I said nothing. I only held him tighter. Because I knew, this pain would stay with him forever. Carved deep into his bones. I gently patted his back. My voice soft. All right, no more. This child will be the crown prince. Perhaps this was heaven's punishment for Heng. No matter how hard we tried, our souls never switched back. Years passed, and we slowly grew used to this life. I became a wise ruler, diligent, attentive to the people. He became a virtuous empress, graceful, steady, and composed. The nation flourished, the court was stable, the people lived in peace. As for whether we would ever return to our original bodies, or go back to our own world, I had long since stopped hoping. That useless system, no matter how many times I called for it, never responded again. Perhaps it had malfunctioned. Or perhaps it had simply forgotten me. The end. Thank you for listening to the story on Anazini's channel. Please like and subscribe.